Player Will.
Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here, getting back to my roots this week on a little bit more of a teaching type of presentation where we now have Riku in the game. We have an MA3 upgrade for Starlight Elena. We're going to have Venera coming out here in a couple weeks, which gets us back to a little bit of a refresher that some of you might not be used to seeing, but basically answering the question how to hit evade units. And like real evade units, not these pseudo evade units that we see with the Sephiroth once in a while. None of them. Real good old fashioned high evade units. And so today's presentation is going to basically be three different sections. The first one, we are going to re-examine the hit rate formula just so everyone has a little bit more comfort around how it works. I promise I'm going to keep it high level. We're not going into math at all. The second part here, we will just do some general stat takeaways that after looking at the formulas, kind of, hey, what are the conclusions that we can draw from that you really should be remembering? And then finally, the much longer section is going to be about the actual team building tips of some of the bare minimum things you should be doing, and at least some of the things you should be knowledgeable about if you need to continue building your hit rate. So kicking things off here with the hit rate formula. At its highest level, the game takes what we call, let's say, total accuracy percent of your attacker, and then the total evasion percent of your enemy, and the net difference between the two is the final hit rate. Now, the things that go into your character's accuracy are their dexterity stat, their luck stat, and just a straight old-fashioned accuracy percent. We'll see examples of that soon. And the enemy evade units, the stats that go into them, are their agility stat, their luck stat, and their evasion stat, which is just an evasion percent. Again, we'll see examples of that soon. And there is a mathematical formula that goes through this, that total accuracy. This is actually what the formula looks like. You could theoretically plug this into Excel or good old-fashioned pen and paper and come out with what the total accuracy rate of your unit is. We're not going to do that here now. But similarly, you have your total evasion equation too. Again, anyone that wants to crunch the numbers, this has been widely known for quite some time now. But the one at least takeaway I wanted to at least maybe try to visualize here for you is looking in the center here of how the luck plays into both of these equations. And if you'll notice, this part of the equation is exactly identical for both your accuracy and the enemy's total evasion rate. And the net takeaway is that luck helps both accuracy and luck proportionally. It's exactly the same, how it affects it. So we're going to see how that comes into play later, but I at least wanted to highlight this now. And so when you're looking in menu to say like, hey, how do I kind of figure out where these stats are, what they do? If we again kind of bring back these formulas, if you wanted to take a peek and say, hey, what is my Yuna's total accuracy? And we are going to look at how you can actually calculate this at the very end using a hit rate calculator. Yeah, you're going to look for her dexterity, and I have this slightly out of order, but you're going to look for her dexterity, you're going to look for her luck, and you're going to look for her accuracy. And all three of these primary metrics are in that menu screen. And theoretically, if you wanted to calculate someone's evasion, or like this Yuna's evasion, these are also the same stats that you would use here to try to potentially calculate that unit's evade rate. And so I'm just pausing on the screen just to get y'all familiar with if you are in game. Yeah, you can actually physically see these stats on the character menu. The one big problem the game does, and I hope for this in a future quality of life update, is that they don't actually combine all three of these together, which you really need to do. You can't just look at your accuracy stat only and come to really any conclusions about whether or not you can hit the enemy unit or not, because a major component of that formula is not only the dexterity component, but the luck component as well. So now that we've gone through this, just some of the really general stat takeaways that you should walk away from this presentation knowing and remembering. The first one is that luck is one of the key primary stats to emphasize when trying to gear for your accuracy, and that luck scales equally for evasion percent as it does for accuracy percent, and that's really how you keep pace with these evasion units. And just to phrase this in other words, let's say you had two units. You have your unit, let's say your own Yuna, and the enemy has a Riku, and let's just, for the sake of argument, assume they have the same base luck. Well, if enemy Riku has two luck vision cards in her team, one main slot, one sub slot, and she's getting certain amount of percent from that, your Yuna, if you have luck percent in the main slot and sub slot, are getting an equal amount of accuracy. Because of the way they both are in the formula, it's a net wash. And so that's why so often in these evade metas, you hear people talk about, well, hey, no matter what, if you're trying to hit these units, you need a main slot and sub slot luck vision card because at minimum, you know that's what the evasion team is running. And so you need those two just to keep pace with them, again, assuming similar base luck numbers, which many of these newer units are in the same ballpark. The second thing here is that just the straight up accuracy stat is also one of the key primary stats. You can get these accuracy percents on Espers, on your Alexandrite ring. We're going to go through all of that on the whole latter half of this presentation. But finally, the big thing too to remember is dexterity, while important, is not as impactful as a contributor to your total accuracy as the others. Just for example, a unit going from 500 dexterity to 600 dexterity, a whole 100, you only get 7% accuracy from that whole 100 extra dex. And you even get less than that at higher levels because the graph technically tapers off and you get diminishing returns. But a unit going from 500 luck to 600 luck, you get 37% accuracy in that conversion. So again, not that dexterity is useless, it's just you get far less return on investment as compared to the luck stat, which is why you hear us talk about luck so often when it comes to accuracy. Now, continuing on, how do you build accuracy into your teams? And there's roughly like 9 different ways. I'm sure there's probably a couple others that I haven't exactly put in here, but I think this is 95% of what you would ever need to know about building accuracy into your teams. And even if you don't need to do all of it, because you don't need to do all 9 things at once, but you should be knowledgeable about what all 9 of them are so that you can build your team smarter. And out of these 9 different things, not all of them are equally important or equally easy to do. I do think that out of this list, what equipment you use that have accuracy on it is one of the easiest things you can do. Which Espers you are using is one of the easiest ways to build it too. And then left side Truststone sets, going for the luck set bonus, is definitely one of the easiest things you can do. And finally, those luck vision cards, very simple. If you do these 4 out of your 9, you're covering most of what you need to try to hit these units. You might still need a little bit extra depending upon how innately accurate your character already is. But this covers most of the bases alone on these 4 arrows. And so we're going to go through all 9 of these individually. The biggest thing to keep in mind, you are going to be giving something up in order to build your total accuracy. This is okay. It's going to feel uncomfortable because you're used to running your units a certain way, and you're going to have to give up some things as a trade-off for that accuracy. So you might be giving up some extra defense penetration by switching a character passive that you've been using for quite some time. You might be giving up some agility points if you have to go for the aim build, or maybe a slower Esper that has the accuracy nodes on it. You might have to give up an entire second buff if you're using a TMR buff that has accuracy instead, or you might have to go for an Esper that has less damage on it just so you can get those extra accuracy percent nodes. This is going to happen all the time. You just got to get a little comfortable with it. And while this is all math at the end of the day, this is where it's a little more art than a science. It's trying to figure out where you can give things up and where you can keep things in other places. Now, going through those 9 original bullets one by one, when we look at these character passives, this is one of those things that I look for in my character reviews just to see how versatile a character can be when it comes to increasing their accuracy innately. So a character like Yuna, you are likely using these top 2 passives 99% of the time in almost all instances. Should we enter a hyper evade meta, you might want to consider changing the second passive down to Unwavering Javelineer, which has the 25% accuracy. Now, quick note for Yuna, you are losing the range +1, which is pretty bad. That's a pretty devastating loss. But the Trial of Reckoning item that comes out for her gives her a range +1. So you can functionally get that part of her back. But at the end of the day, regardless of that range, you're giving up some agility points and you're giving up the honeycomb barrier. So this kind of circles back to what I was talking about. It's going to make you a little uncomfortable. And yeah, not every character is going to be at their peak performance you're used to, but there are going to have to be trade-offs in some places to give up something to get this extra accuracy. This is a great example of that. I'm not saying you have to do this, obviously just it's an option. Now the second thing here is looking at character buffs, and admittedly there's probably been less of these as of late in the last 6 to 8 months, but Summer Resnick was, for good reason, called an S-tier unit and a must-pull for anyone that could, and one of those reasons is that on this teammate buff you get a 30% accuracy. Not every unit has access to a buff like this or can be used in a team with a buff like this, but 30% accuracy is a heck of a lot, and this typically is really important because it offsets most evade units turn 1 buffs, where if you look at most evade units like Halloween Lucio or Riku, their first buff gives them 25% evasion. So no matter what your team already has for accuracy built into it, you got to keep up with the buffs too. So that Riku buffs for 25% evasion, this Summer Resnick buff just offsets it. It's a little higher than Riku's, but you get the point. Now the second kind of buff, in addition to just the character buffs, are what TMRs offer. And this is admittedly not as recommended because typically this has huge ramifications on what your turn order is, what you're equipping, what buffs you have to turn off to make sure the TMR priority goes off, what happens if you use a TMR twice in one fight and you need to do a second Guild War hit. There's a lot of extra thought that goes into the TMRs, which is admittedly also why there's really no good TMR tier list either, per se, because it's really just quite frankly dependent on your team, their buff order, the map, what you're trying to be, all of those factors. But obviously, TMRs should be in the back of your mind of, hey, do I have an option here to get some kind of accuracy buff? The one that we're looking at here, the Princely Vest, is the Ice Howlet the Heaven's Blade TMR. That's 60% accuracy for 3 turns on a self buff. Now, the next thing you can look at is equipment. The Alexandrite ring is definitely the most famous of all the accuracy-oriented equipment in the game, and just a quick little refresher on the stat portion of this. On the top part here, where you've got that vital, aim, and critical builds, when you're putting pieces of gear on, and we're going to talk specifically about accuracy here, the highest accuracy piece that you have will keep 100% of its value. The second highest accuracy piece you have on, whether it's a weapon, maybe it's your TMR, you only get half of that accuracy value. And the third highest piece, if all 3 of them have accuracy on it, only gets 25%. So important to keep that in mind. We will actually revisit that a little bit later. But the other thing too is that everything under this passive effects box that my cursor's at, we call these box stats simply because they're in a box on World of Stats. These box stats don't stack with Truststone passives. So this accuracy of 20 on the Alexandrite ring, if you had a Truststone passive for 10% accuracy on the right side, they would not stack. It would only take the highest of the 2. So it would take only the Alex ring. But there is some other popular alternatives to the Alex ring, not necessarily as good on the accuracy side, but they are other benefits. The silver-rimmed spectacles do come with 36% accuracy on the main stat. The White Marshmallow miniature has 21% accuracy in the main stat, but 20% also in the box. So it's only 7% less accurate than the Alexandrite ring here in that aim build. The Pod 153 is also a famously great alternative where you have 20% accuracy in the main stat and another 10% in the box stat. Now, an important reminder, a lot of people forget about this, many weapons also have aim builds that you may not have built yet. An example is like Yuna's Tiny Bee gun. There's an assault build that I'm sure many of you built out, but there's also an aim build here that has 23% accuracy. Now, this is kind of where you want to remember that you don't get to keep that entire portion of the stat. If you were using the Tiny Bee with the Alex ring here, well, the Alex ring has 28% accuracy on its aim build. This one only has 23%, so you would only get half of that 23%. That being said, 11% is nothing to sneeze at. Every little bit adds up. If you get 10% from 6 different places, that's 60% hit rate. That's pretty noteworthy. So just an honorable mention that for whatever weapons you might be using, just consider, is there an aim build that maybe you hadn't built out yet that you might want to consider throwing in here? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is what the stats on your TMR actually are. I would recommend going into your TMRs. There's a sort button here in the top right. You can click accuracy and sort them from highest accuracy to lowest. And you're going to notice that in some of your builds, as long as your turn order is fine, as long as your agility values are in the order that you want them to be, you're probably going to be using some TMRs on average now that skew higher on their accuracy stat. And again, while it may not be the highest accuracy item that you have equipped currently, even 50% or 25%, every little bit ends up helping out. And this is particularly important to remember when we talk about aim Truststone sets, which we will in a couple slides. We're going to actually revisit this exact piece of equipment, but we talk about the aim set on the right side. Now, the other very easy way to build accuracy, in my opinion, is via the Espers. And so I have categorized here which Espers have certain percentages of accuracy on them. Obviously, the ones in the very far left, preferred. The ones in the middle here at a 15 to 16% accuracy, still totally fine. 12%, worse, still okay, better than nothing, I guess. But there's over 43 Espers that have 7% accuracy. And unfortunately, that's not enough to be able to hit in this evade meta, so you really are going to want to get comfortable and reacquaint yourselves with all of these Espers in these very far two buckets. But admittedly, one thing to keep in mind, be wary about using your MR and SR Espers. Oftentimes, their innate luck and dexterity stats that come on the Espers themselves, they're lower than the UR Espers just by the fact of their rarity. And so you don't get as much of the net accuracy as you might think you're getting. And a great example of this is the Demon Shimera and Tetrasylphid right here. They both have 12% accuracy nodes. So in your head, you might think, oh, either one is good for accuracy. I'm getting 12% for both. But the thing is, Tetrasylphid is a UR Esper. It has 14 more luck than Demon Shimera. That 14 luck is about 5% accuracy. So while the nodes might look similar, the stats of the Tetrasylphid give you a whole extra 5% more. So you might look at some of these Espers like Merilith or Bloody Moon or Zoo or Tonberry and be like, oh wow, these are accurate Espers, but their lower dexterity stats and lower luck stats don't often get you as much, even still, as some of the UR Espers. Now let's talk about the Truststone sets, and this has been a conversation that a lot of veterans at least know by heart at this time, but always good for a refresher. On the left side set bonuses, you can craft 3 luck stones. I stones, J stones, and P stones. When you equip 3 of them, you get 15% luck. And as we just saw with the Glacial Esper, I'm sorry, we didn't talk about that. The Glacial Esper here doesn't have accuracy nodes, it has luck percent on it. 15% luck on Glacial is roughly 10 to 12% accuracy depending on that unit space luck. But getting back to the Trust Stones, yeah, 15% luck is roughly 10 to 12% accuracy depending on the unit space luck. So this set bonus alone, obviously great for double-digit percentages of accuracy. Luck stones also give you 4 luck in the main stat per stone, so a whole extra 12 luck in total. And as we just saw with the whole Tetrasylphid Demon Shimmer thing, 12 luck is roughly 5% accuracy. In addition to that, on your P stone, not all 3 of them, only on your P stone, luck is actually one of the physical stats on it, and you can roll up to a 19 on this luck. So I would highly recommend rolling this stone until you get a high luck stat. I don't know, 17 and 19 is pretty good. And obviously a high HP stat too. This example I have on the screen is much lower than I'd be comfortable with. I just rolled it and I wanted to visually show this, but know that when you're making your P stone, you should emphasize going for a high luck stat as well. And then finally, when it comes to Truststone passives, you can have a 10% luck Truststone passive on that left side. It's about another 7% accuracy. Since the Truststone system has come out at this point 2-3 years ago, I literally have never run a unit without 10% luck on the left side Truststone passive, ever. It's a mandatory part of all my builds. And so when you add up all of these benefits of a well-crafted left side luck Truststone set, you're getting about 11% accuracy from the set bonus, about 5% from the luck main stats on each stone, about 7% from rolling a good luck stat here, and another 7% or so from that Truststone passive. So in total, you're getting about 30% accuracy here from a well-crafted left side luck Truststone set. So do not let this go unattended. The Truststone system has gotten so much more user-friendly where you don't even have to craft duplicates at this point. You just have to craft one set and you can throw it on every single character. Huge quality of life game changer that should hopefully help your gameplay. Now, alternatively, on the right side, you do have aim builds that you can use for your 3 different Trust Stones. And a lot of times people use the agility sets here. Sometimes you might see people use attack or magic sets. But when you equip 3 different aim stones on the right side, you get 15% total accuracy. Kind of similar to luck, there's also main stats here. You get 2% accuracy per stone, so a total of 6% accuracy. And then on your A stone in particular, you can also roll a accuracy stat up to 8%. So this is kind of similar to that luck stat in the last one. You can roll a nice accuracy stat here when you add everything up, but there is a little more complexity here to this aim set than there is to the luck set. And it really gets down to the main stats here that you're seeing on the image. Now, this accuracy set bonus of 15% when you equip all 3 stones, you will get that no matter what. 15% no matter what, guaranteed. But these other ones I was just mentioning, this 2% on all 3 stones and this 8% that you can roll, these are considered part of the main stats of whatever item you put this Trust Stone on. So that 6% and 8% can get cut in half if you're wearing a higher piece like the Alex ring. And circling back to the Azure Brilliance, that Water Veritas TMR we were talking about, that TMR, if you recall, had 23% accuracy in its main stat. So the way you figure this, that 23% accuracy, you would add another 6% to it because of the main stats you're getting from each stone, and then another 8% here because of that A stone, for a total of 37% accuracy on that TMR. Ironically, that's actually more than the Alex ring. In this case, your Alex ring would be the one getting cut in half. It's kind of rare, but this is a case where that would happen. And finally, the accuracy 10% Truststone passive that you can roll on the right side, often not recommended because it doesn't stack with the box stats of other items that you're likely wearing in an evade meta. So something like the Alexandrite ring, mentioned this before, it's got 20% accuracy in the box stat. It will not stack with the 10% accuracy of a Truststone passive. Now, in the case where it doesn't, if you're wearing silver rim spectacles, yeah, go for 10% accuracy. Absolutely. It's just not often recommended because oftentimes it doesn't count because it doesn't stack. Now, getting toward the end of this, one of the easiest, best ways to still give accuracy to is just straight up from the luck vision cards. And these also give your units their own evasion percent and crit evasion. So there are other upsides to emphasizing this. And the 42% luck, which is kind of the new power creep normal. We saw this on the Halloween Lucio vision card. It's on the future Venera vision card. That 42% luck in the main slot is about 30% accuracy to your team, depending on their base luck. But that's roughly the average. A 35% luck vision card like the Secrets of the Heart and some of these other mono element vision cards, that's about 24% accuracy. If you put Secrets of the Heart in the sub slot, instead of getting the 35%, you'll get 21% of the sub slot. That's still about 15% accuracy. So when you're talking about putting a main slot and sub slot luck vision card in, 35% in the main, 21% in the luck, that's about 39% accuracy. That's an enormous amount of accuracy for those two luck scaling cards. It's why to this day, the Secrets of the Heart vision card, because it's universal, doesn't care about your job, it doesn't care about your element. Everyone in the party gets 35% luck. Still one of the most beneficial vision cards in the game, particularly for these evade metas. And then alternatively, you do have accuracy-oriented vision cards, and these are definitely easier to interpret because the percent is what it is. There's no conversion like there is with luck. If something says 20% accuracy, it's 20% accuracy. There is a universal card for it. It is the Typhon vision card, but this is not a great candidate for a main slot vision card. So while it does exist, it's not as recommended to put in that main slot. And honestly, at this point, a lot of these job VCs can take the place of it. There's definitely mono element vision cards that have accuracy on them too. I just didn't want to go through the work of bringing them all up. And honestly, there's not a ton of them either, so you're not really missing out. But you should at least be familiar with many of these job vision cards for what they have for accuracy. Now, the honorable mention here is unit affinity. I wouldn't consider this in the team building, but it's something to keep in mind when you're watching your battle unfold, is that when it comes to unit affinity, you get stat boosts to your agility, your dexterity, and your luck, depending upon whether or not you're within 2 tiles of a teammate or not. So, you get 10% luck if you have one ally near your unit, and you get another 5% if you have a second ally near your unit. So if all 3 of them are grouped up, you are getting 15% luck from them being grouped up. This is important context if, for example, let's say you have an enemy evade unit and they're grouped up with 2 of their allies, but you have a unit and they're all by themselves. That enemy evade unit, due to the unit affinity, is going to get an extra 15% luck bonus, and your unit, because it's standing near nobody, is not going to get any luck percent bonus. So that is going to hurt your accuracy overall. Again, it's not something to really think too hard about, but if you're observing and you're seeing your unit by themselves and wondering why they're still missing, the unit affinity might be the other thing to keep in mind. Now, while we get to the end of this, you might be sitting here thinking like, Will, this is really informative and I've learned a lot and this is really great, but I still don't know how to hit evade units. How do I actually know if I'm hitting them or not? Well, one of the best ways, in addition to just mocking and seeing what it looks like on average, which does take time, and while good to see, takes some time, so not always fun to do. There does exist an online hit rate calculator that most people use here, and the link is here. The link is also in the comment, and the way you use this is basically just go into your character screen and observe what your unit's stats are, as we saw earlier, the dexterity, the luck, the accuracy bonus, and you would simply type it in. You type in whatever your stats are in the game, and optimally you would like to figure out what the enemy evade rate is. And so to do so, either look at a teammate in your guild that might have these stats, or build your own team and look at the stats. But you could, fill out your evade stats here for your evade unit, and you would get your in-game hit rate of what your odds are from hitting them from the front. You got to recall that if you hit them from the side, you get an extra 15%. If you hit them from the back, it's an extra 30%. If your unit is blinded, your total accuracy rate here, this number up here, gets cut in half if you're blinded. And also remember that this does not take into account the unit affinity, which changes every single turn of the battle, depending upon how far away you're spaced. But this video should hopefully answer a lot of questions on how you can more consistently team build to approach these evade teams and being able to hit them more consistently. At the end of the day, there's still a lot that goes into the thought behind it because you still have to bring a team that can beat it. Never mind just hit it. Obviously, it's one thing to hit it. You still have to win your fight technically. So this is a very complex thing to handle in the game. Not always user-friendly because then obviously more numbers heavy. And even in-game, it's not 100% clear all the time exactly what your hit rate looks like. But that's what I'm here. That's what JB79 is here. That's what your guild members and the Discords are for. Really recommend collaborating with other people, asking questions on the subreddit, just to get more familiar with this, because if you don't and you see a lot of evade, honestly, it doesn't feel great to play against. It's going to ruin your game experience that you bring a bunch of units to a fight and they end up just standing around, not even attacking because their hit rates are 0% and they can't even hit the enemy once. So hopefully you can avoid that by taking some of this and implementing it into what you do. But that's it for now. I'm expecting a lot of questions, comments, critiques, criticisms. Throw that all in the comment section below. Love to have everybody discuss with each other because, again, this is a meaty kind of topic, but obviously I'm here to help out. And at the end of the day, appreciate y'all watching and contributing. Good luck, and I'll talk to y'all soon.